So how important is land size then, especially when you're looking out in the regions? Everyone wants land.
Oh, land value and the rate of value growth is the right question to ask.
Okay.
You can go and buy 2,000 square metres of land, but if it's growing at a lesser rate than the 500 square metre block closer into town, and you're getting the same rent, well, what are you doing? If your motivation is to subdivide, different story, but then that's a different set of questions altogether. And I often say to people, why are you looking at subdividing? You know, if you're bored and it's to be busy or to have a good story to barbecue, just find a hobby that you like.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of risk in subdivision when you don't know what you're doing, and there's a lot more risk when you're very, very busy and your asset is 2 hours drive away and you haven't got those tentacles into the local market to know who to ask to, you know, help you with your project. So when it comes to land size, I say go for land value and its rate of increase.
Well, on that developing front of things, I do hear a lot of people come to me and say, look, I want to get into the development game. I'm going to buy a property out in the suburbs. I'm going to subdivide it. And I'm going to put a house on the side. And I go, oh, wow, have you done your numbers? Because a lot of the times you see construction costs and the amount of time it's going to take to do this outweigh the benefits in the short term. However, in the long term, you could see some benefits.
Yes, that opens the conversation to the concept of what we call land banking, where you can sit on something that's subdividable, but you're not necessarily trying to, you know, initiate any kind of gain or start the project at the onset. And clever builders and developers do this. In fact, they get into a cycle where they buy a property, they'll call it a site, but it will have a house on it that's reasonable enough to attract a tenant that will pay the rent and not whinge about too many things, and give them their opportunity. If it's a privately held acquisition, then they can claim some negative gearing benefits on it as well. So if your long-term goal is to pick a good area that will grow in value, and by the time you get your hands on it, carve it up, put your townhouses there, you can create a nice product and you can sell with a better profit margin. That's the aim of the game. If you're buying something and you're working on slim margins and you're popping something really cheap and cheerful there and cutting the guts out of, you know, the type of style internally and some of the appliances and finishes, you're appealing to a market that's not looking at it with an aspirational filter. They're looking at it with an affordable filter. Yep. So your profits are less, and then your risk of losing money in already a skinny profit is high, because it's the first time you're doing this. You could have project overruns, tradies that delay things, bad weather, you could have mishaps at council, there could be issues with all connections, the list goes on. So for anyone that's looking at getting, you know, dunking a toe in the water and getting into development with the idea of doing it long term, the regions can be a good place to start, because you're working with smaller numbers and you've got, you know, less risk. But if you're looking at making money and targeting the regions, I'd say think very carefully and have a really good understanding of the end value of what you're trying to create and who it will appeal to, who's your target market. Because if you're looking at first home buyer market and you're working off slim margins, I'd say it could be a massive waste of time and a big headache.